What's important to recognize is that digital is not a cure-all. Digital is an enabler. It's a model that will be replicated across all sectors, because you cannot have a scenario, or we'll never have a scenario, where one ministry or one group of people can just do everything for everybody. That's not the idea.
Welcome to Timesonline. Today we are here with Dr. Hans Wijayasuriya, appointed by President Anurakumara Dissanayake as the Chief Advisor to President on Digital Economy and now chairing the ICTA. Dr. Wijayasuriya's leadership reflects a commitment to strengthening Sri Lanka's digital economy, aiming to boost economic growth, enhance national competitiveness, and deliver meaningful digital benefits to citizens. Welcome to the show, Dr. Hans. The government is carrying out a digital transformation drive with $10 million investment. And this includes different pillars and different verticals. If I were to start with one vertical, such as expanding digital payments, which the government has been doing since the beginning of this year, could you unpack that for me?
First of all, maybe I'll just clarify on the budget and the available budget, and therefore the government's commitment towards digital transformation. The 3 billion is focused on new projects specific to the acceleration of certain infrastructures in the digital economy blueprint. Aside from that, around 7 billion rupees has been allocated to the projects of the Ministry of Digital Economy, ongoing activities, both operational and capital in nature. And that comes to 10 billion in total. And over and above that, there's around 14 billion allocated to various ministries and institutions across government for ongoing as well as new advancements in digital infrastructure as well as digital services. So the government's thrust on digital acceleration overall comes to around 24 billion during the course of 2025. You zeroed in on payments. Yes. I think that's a very good place to start, because payments or digital payments is one area in which Sri Lanka's infrastructure, as it is pretty much world class. Over the years, under the guidance of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and enabled by Lanka Pay, as well as the financial ecosystem in Sri Lanka, the banks and the other institutions and the fintechs have together created a payment ecosystem which is, I would say, very, very advanced. Is it perfect? No. Is there room to improve? Yes, definitely. And we have been focused in 2025. We have actually identified payments for the reason which I just mentioned, because the infrastructure build is already at an advanced stage, as an area for quick wins, delivering outcomes based on existing infrastructure, maximizing the outcome from existing infrastructure. And in this respect, the first area of focus was government payments. Together, the team across Lanka Pay, ICTA, the Ministry of Digital Economy and Central Bank have been very focused in rejuvenating this project, GovPay, and now putting it on a trajectory which exhibits almost exponential growth, and will have a very meaningful impact on the experience citizens and businesses have when paying government. And we expect the number of institutions that have been onboarded to grow again exponentially during the course of the year. The second opportunity or challenge, whichever way you look at it, is the sphere of QR payment. Many are the anecdote from the region, India, from Thailand, from Malaysia, where consumer behavior as well as the payment rails enable the use of QRs, just click and pay kind of experience on a wide scale, on a widespread basis, with a high penetration within the population. So the question is asked, why not Sri Lanka? Why don't you see the street hawker or the street vendor displaying a QR code, let alone a street vendor today, even in a supermarket, the use of the QR code is minimum. So we have put together a cross-industry working group, which is very representative of all the stakeholders, and they work on Chatham House rules, where we just address the blocking points, and we'll continue to make recommendations on how QR payments, as well as other forms of digital payment, spanning tap and go as well as transport payments, can be made mainstream. So I think that's a thrust on payments, and I think it was very valid that you double clicked on that, because that's where the infrastructure is already pretty strong.
When you said transportation payments like ticketing, bus tickets, train tickets, that type of thing.
Yeah, you're right. Transport payments spanning bus, train, other forms of transport. It could extend even to parking and other spheres where consumers or citizens need to make payments. And these payments are typically very small values, what you would call micro payments, and also need to be done very quickly, processed very fast. And that would be a separate focus, which we have embarked upon now, looking not only at current day, but a futuristic scenario for transit payments in the country. Here, the Ministry of Digital Economy will work very closely with the Ministry of Transport, as well as, of course, the central bank and other stakeholders in the financial services sector, to make this ecosystem as advanced as possible. And this model of co-creating between the Ministry of Digital Economy and the relevant line ministry is a model that will be replicated across all sectors, because you cannot have a scenario, we'll never have a scenario, where one ministry or one group of people can just do everything for everybody. That's not the idea. It is to build sufficient and fundamental infrastructures, such as the payment system, and then create on top of that for specific sector implementation.
Streamlining public services, where are you at?
Digitizing a bad process is going to lead to bad digitization and bad outcomes. So this is a challenge which government has to take on as a whole, and each of the line ministries need to take on that challenge pre-digitization to perfect the process that is being adopted, assuming that digital technologies are available, and bringing or giving prime importance to the experience the citizen gets when interacting with that institution. So if a citizen has a problem with the experience or is getting a less than acceptable experience, then that institution needs to recraft their processes to facilitate a better experience. And that recrafting would be partly pure business process re-engineering, and the recrafting can also include digital transformation. What's important to recognize is that digital is not a cure-all. Digital is an enabler, and the process transformation has to happen as a prerequisite.
So improving digital literacy will also go concurrent to this?
Yes. So the capacity building vertical is one that is key, and there are multiple layers to capacity building. The capacity of all government institutions with respect to adopting digital technologies has to be carried out, and this also includes capacity in AI, because today AI can be the single most powerful and potent lever in this transformation. So the institutions themselves, then come the citizens, because citizen digital literacy and trust, confidence in dealing with government with these new tools has to be built up, and also the competence of SMEs as customers of government, but also as producers of services, so that the capacity building and literacy, as well as even technical competence across the ecosystem, is one of the key pillars. And I would chance a guess that a significant portion of all capital and operational budgets will have to be deployed towards capacity building. A mindset shift that we have to go through, because I think technologists in particular, and government institutions more so, and in general, are accustomed to a major portion of investment being into capital items. So for example, if you have a project, I just take a number, 100 million rupees, then it would be 99.5 million in the capital items and maybe 500,000 to train the people. I'm just picking numbers and maybe an extreme example. Whereas the era we have to look forward to is where it's the reverse, because now with open source software, with DPIs, digital public infrastructures, such as the ID, National Data Exchange, digital signatures, digital authentication, digital certificates, these are all not expensive infrastructures. The investment needs to go into changing people and their capacity to use these infrastructures, to build on them and to innovate. So I would say that going forward, we need to be prepared to invest much more in people and less in systems and hardware and software.
Sri Lanka Unique Digital ID has been making the rounds over the past few months. Where is the project at currently?
The procurement phase of this project will be carried out by the Government of India under the terms of the MOU, which has been in place since I think 2022. Post the procurement phase would come an implementation. The project is now at the penultimate point prior to the floating of an RFP. We are awaiting one final cabinet approval, post which the Government of India can release the RFP, and that would kick off the project. We could look forward to having again pilot or sandbox of the digital ID within 3 to 4 months, so that we can really experience, our software developers, our ecosystem here could experience the power of an open digital identity platform.
You also mentioned at a recent forum about empowering the small and medium enterprises through SLUDI. Could you unpack that for us, please?
Yeah, so I was referring to the SMEs in the IT sector, the developers, the content creators, and service providers. Because when we open out these APIs, application program interfaces, to the digital ID infrastructure, and we do this as soon as a sandbox can be created. We don't need to wait for the digital ID to be up and running or for the population to be fully registered to expose the APIs, or expose the platform to the developer community, to end users such as government institutions, and start creating those solutions which will deliver their full potential once the digital ID is in the hands of 20 million people. So the smaller development houses, as well as the large ones, can start, I would just to use a frivolous term, can start playing with not only the digital ID, but also with the capabilities of the National Data Exchange, capabilities of authentication platforms, and so on.
Let's turn to the legal and institutional reforms in carrying out digitalization. The Data Protection Act and the Electronic Transaction Act in particular are two key pieces of legislation. Where are you at with the first Data Protection Act?
The original DPA was passed, I think, a couple of years ago, and we've just floated a few amendments to make it more open, I would say, to cross-border data flows on one hand, also to strengthen the institutional capabilities, and for that there's an extension of time for it to come into force later this year. Both the Data Protection Act as well as the Data Protection Authority will be functional commencing September, October this year, and then will, in phases, bring into force the various chapters, bring into practical application the multiple areas covered by the data protection. I believe we have already been recognized for the depth to which data protection has been recognized within this Act. And once it's fully activated, I think it will place Sri Lanka on the world map in terms of data protection governance. Having said that, it's an evolving subject. As AI comes more into play, I think we need to have an open mind on swift changes and agility in terms of adapting our legislation to the latest technologies. Electronic Transaction Act has served us well. I think we were again a front runner in this space, even in the region. We will be looking at amendments required to meet the requirements of the digital economy blueprint, and this goes for the various pieces of legislation which come into or impact and enable the overall digital economy blueprint. So others being cybersecurity, the Telecom Act, and also the new legislation which is envisaged for the creation of the Digital Economy Authority of Sri Lanka, which will be an apex authority on policies, setting, strategy, and enforcement of digital economy principles on a uniform basis across government. So the new institutional framework and the legislation to support it, we expect to have in place by the end of this year.
The application programming interface, there would be rules for those as well.
Yes, so there would be, I think, APIs will be policy driven. So we will be publishing both API first kind of guidelines, but also API policies and guidelines of use for cross-government, as well as in instances where the private sector needs to deal with government systems. So that's a very valid point, that policies will be published, and where necessary they would be converted into directives or under the aegis of the Digital Economy Authority. Other policies would be the cloud policy, policies on residency and sovereignty, policies on AI, of course, and so on.
The National Data Governance Strategy was mentioned by you some time ago. Is Sri Lanka working on it?
Yes, as we speak, both in terms of data classification, which relates to, at a very high level, relates to how government institutions or even private institutions which are regulated, such as banks or telcos, how they should classify their data, on what basis they would classify their data as being either high security, sensitive, or less sensitive, or even public. So that when you have this classification of data, you could also map it to a policy on what data needs to be kept in country and on premise, and what data can be used in a sovereign environment, and what data can in fact exploit the capabilities and lower cost of public cloud.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wijayasuriya. With that, we are going into the next segment where we unpack what digital infrastructure is.